Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, my lovely students? I hope you are fine and everything is great with you and you are well protected against the coronavirus. So I hope you enjoyed the first video I sent you and everything is okay with that one. So now let us continue with the fertilization process. Okay, so in the last video we talked about the different types of reproduction. We said that there are two types, the asexual and the sexual reproduction. And in the sexual reproduction we said that there must be a male and female, the sperm cell from the male and the ovum cell from the female, and when they fuse together they form the zygote. So in order to talk about this process, the fertilization process in details, which is very important, we know that during this process of fertilization, the male will give sperm cells, actually millions of sperm cells. And from the female there is only one ovum cell or one egg cell. As you can see here in the figure, actually hundreds of sperm cells reach the ovum cell. So there is only one ovum cell, one egg cell. Actually this is one of the largest cells in the body, and you can see the sperm cells. You can compare the sizes between the sperm cell and the ovum or the egg cell. Actually hundreds of sperm cells just reach the ovum cell, but only one sperm cell could enter to the ovum. And when this happens, when one sperm cell enters the ovum membrane changes so that it prevents the other sperm cells from entering inside the ovum. So actually only one sperm cell succeeds in entering and penetrating the ovum cell. And as you notice here, actually only the head from the sperm cell could enter the ovum cell, while the tail is cut off and stays outside. So here inside the ovum there is the nucleus, which contains the 23 chromosomes, the DNA, which we talked about earlier, and in the head of the sperm cell there is the nucleus as well, which also contains the 23 chromosomes. So that in the next step here we can see the sperm nucleus, and here this is the ovum nucleus. What happens next is that they fuse together. So the sperm nucleus contains 23 chromosomes and the ovum cell contains 23 chromosomes. So when they fuse together we obtain the 46 chromosomes, which is normally found in all our body cells. So here, when the sperm cell and the ovum cell fuse together, we obtain the zygote cell. This is the zygote cell, which is the first cell of you and me and everyone. So then the zygote will just start dividing, start growing to become an embryo and a fetus, and will become the baby at the end. So this is the fertilization process. Just in brief, the fertilization process is the union or the fusion of a sperm cell which comes from the male and an ovum cell which is already found in the female's body, so that when they fuse together, this process is called fertilization. So it's very important actually to study the structure of the female reproductive system. Okay, so these are the parts of the female reproductive system, which is found in the abdomen of the female. These are the two ovaries, and we have the fallopian tube one here and fallopian tube one here. Here we have in the middle one uterus, and here we have the vagina. Okay, so what is the role of each part here? This is the ovary. We know that the ovary in endocrine system, it's important to secrete and produce hormones, right? Estrogen hormone, which is very important for puberty. But also here it has another role, which is to produce and secrete ovum cells to produce egg cell here into the fallopian tube. So when the female reaches puberty, the ovaries start to produce the estrogen hormone. Now it's time to produce ovum cell as well. So normally girls that they didn't reach puberty, they don't have the ability to produce ovum cell yet. But when they reach puberty at the age of 13 to 15, for example, the ovaries start to produce hormones and start to secrete ovum cell, which means now they have the ability to become pregnant and having babies. So here, this is the ovary. Each month, one ovum cell is secreted into the fallopian tube. It comes to the fallopian tube and stuck here. If there is no sperm that comes from the male, this ovum cell will just move through the fallopian tube, go to the uterus, and go outside the female's body through the vagina. But while in the second case, when the ovary produces the ovum cell actually waits here for some time in the fallopian tube, and if there are sperm cells, the sperm cells comes here, swim. You know that the sperm cells have tails, so that they swim up through the uterus, through the fallopian tube, and hundreds of them reaches the ovum, as we discussed in the previous picture, and then one sperm cell could enter to the ovum. Fertilization takes place in the fallopian tube, or also we could call it the oviduct. So here the fertilization process takes place in the fallopian tube. After fertilization process, the zygote, now because it becomes zygote, the zygote travels and moves through the fallopian tubes, come to the uterus, and then in the uterus what happens? It attaches to the membrane of the uterus and start developing and growing inside the uterus. For how many months? For example, in humans, the embryo and the fetus just stays for 9 months. After the 9 months, it becomes a baby and it's ready to be born. So actually, what is here inside the uterus, how the baby is born, what happens during this 9 months, this is what we see in this picture. This is now in the uterus. Okay, this is the wall of the uterus. Here there is a piece of blood and the organ called placenta. This is the baby, this is the fetus, al-janin, and this is the umbilical cord, which is a tube connected between the placenta and the baby. What happens in here? When the mother is eating and is drinking, everything passes through this placenta. So the placenta is giving the nutrients and the oxygen, everything the baby needs to grow, and all the oxygen and the nutrients pass through this umbilical cord, okay, and is given to the baby. So the baby is taking the nutrients, is taking the oxygen from the mother by the placenta through the umbilical cord, and of course the baby uses these nutrients, make some wastes, okay, and the carbon dioxide is released because the baby now inside the uterus doesn't use the lungs, okay, the lungs are not working yet. So the carbon dioxide released from the cells, they are taken by the blood through the umbilical cord, goes out through the placenta, from the placenta to the mother's body, from the mother's body it goes outside the female's body through the lungs and through the urinary system. So this is the relationship, how the mother is giving nutrients and oxygen to the baby. I hope this is the end of this video, this documentary. I hope you understood it, and if you have any question, please do not hesitate to ask me through the application. Have a nice day, take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.